All right, let's talk about Become Superhuman. Or as we'll see in this lecture, it's all about becoming superhuman. Because you don't have to be afraid of becoming the best version of yourself just because everybody else is. You got to leave the herd behind, you got to make your own path, and you got to work and move forward. So what do we mean? What is the definition of superhuman? Well, it's exceeding normal human ability or experience. So what are we talking about? Becoming superhuman. Well, let's take a look at a good old-fashioned bell-shaped curve. And we know that the masses lie right in the middle, average. And we know some people excel and some people struggle. And this bell-shaped curve applies to pretty much every aspect and every area of our life. We know that some people are shorter than others, some people are taller, and then most people lie right in the middle. But the key is we always want to move up. We want to move forward. These little lines are what we call standard deviations. So no matter where you are in your life in any certain area, you can always move up and you can always improve. And yeah, we'd like to get all the parts of our training and nutrition and recovery up here at the highest level. But a lot of times you find yourself stuck. You might be stuck right here. What do you do? I mean, this could be, your nutrition. You're eating too much fast food. You're eating too much candy. Well, make a plan and move up and put in the effort to move to the next notch, because in doing so, you've just passed all these people. And if you make, you double down and keep going, you can see that you make this huge improvement. Once more, this is where the masses sit right in the middle. So again, we look at becoming superhuman more as a verb rather than a noun. So it's what someone does rather than what someone is. Sure, we can aspire to being superhuman, but the main focus has always got to be on the execution, taking action, and working towards that goal. So when we're talking about becoming superhuman, what we're really talking about is superhuman differentiation. And this is a unique concept I created straight from the World Champion Standard. We talk a lot about it in the quantum theory section. Differentiation is a term we borrow from the calculus, which means rate of change. So it's the rate of change of becoming superhuman. All right, so what do we actually do in becoming superhuman? Well, we put together improvements in how we think and improvements in how we act. And this puts us on that path, that rate of change of improvement in all the different aspects of your life that play into your health, your fitness, and ultimately your athletic performance. All right, so let's go through a lot of the characteristics of world champion athletes. In this process of becoming superhuman, what do they do, and what do they do differently that really sets them apart? So let's just start at the top. They do hard things on purpose. They've chosen this path, and they love it. They're extremely consistent. This stands out above all the other attributes. Controlling their mind, this is a big one. Taking full responsibility and not blaming, shortcomings and problems on others. They focus on what really matters. And with everything that's out there on the internet and television, this is a hard one nowadays. You really have to focus on the key things that will support your journey. Taking care of your body, of course, this is critical. We'll talk a bit in one of our examples about how crucial your recovery is to your performance. Perseverance, thinking long term, and then always moving forward, always learning, always improving. And that's where our verb comes into place. That's where the differentiation comes into place. We're always moving forward and, building strong habits. And, have a mission that's bigger than yourself. Most world champion athletes have other things rather than just getting on the top step, other things in their life that support and serve this journey. And so if you really want to dig deep into athletes' perspectives on what it takes to become your very best, what are the most important factors, here's a great journal article. Once again, open access. You can pull this up and read it for free. A great article if you want to go more in depth to the scientific research behind the key factors involved in becoming your very best. All right, so let's take a look at an example, something practical. And right here, some days I rock it, some days it rocks me, but either way, we're rocking recovery. Okay, so this is our example. Every day it's critical, and it starts the second you're done with your training. But the most important thing is you have to have a plan. And as a physician, I can tell you this is a critical part of our management of patients. We go through what the patient tells you. We go through everything we find on the examination, their lab test. We make an assessment or a diagnosis. And then the most important part at the end is we come up with a treatment plan to help that person get better. And you've got to have this as part of your recovery. So you got to have a plan. And almost every single athlete I've worked with, when I first sit down with them, I say, what's your plan for recovery? And almost every one of them just looks at me, deer in the headlights, like, I'll take it easy. I don't know. It's like, no, you have to have a plan. You have to write down a plan. If you don't have one, sit down and write down exactly what you're going to do from the moment you finish your training till you start again the next day or a couple days later. And that's all well and good. It's absolute requirement that you have a plan. But the most important thing is that you execute it. Okay, I'm going to walk you through a world champion level recovery plan. And we're going to start after our training. We're going to rehydrate immediately. And then we've got to meet those protein and carb requirements, and we've got to meet them early and quickly. And what you want to do is you want to have those available. It's a certain amount. The ballpark numbers are about 30 grams of protein and carbs, something to get in your system immediately, easily digested, and get you on your way back home so you can eat. Of course, then doing a cool down, stretching, making sure to take a shower, getting home, and then eating a full meal to replace all those requirements to get appropriate calories, protein, and carbohydrates. Lay down, take a nap, and then when you wake up, review your training and try to figure out what you've done, what you did right, what you've done wrong, and come up with areas for improvement for the next day. And then that evening, you're going to eat a healthy dinner. You're going to go to bed early. You're going to wind down before bed, avoid caffeine, avoid alcohol, avoid screen time, and get your room as dark as possible. There's a whole long list of sleep hygiene things that you can add to this, but this is the bread and butter and the foundation of taking care of yourself at night. And then the next morning, of course, make sure you get a full night's sleep. You're going to have a healthy breakfast. You're going to rehydrate. You're going to get plenty of water. You're going to brush and floss your teeth. And then you're going to have a plan for the day. And of course, you're going to have a training plan for the day. Now, we go back to these 3 slides and look at everything on these. Most serious athletes agree with everything that's on there, and they aspire to do all those things. But I can tell you, maybe 1 out of 10 serious athletes actually do these regularly. And when you look at who does it day in and day out for weeks and for months, those numbers drop precipitously down to 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 10,000. And at the end of the day, the people that do this day in, day out for weeks, months, and years on end up at the very top. It's as simple as that. Because when you execute your plan regularly, you become hardened. And all these processes become hardwired into your system, creating these massive pillars in your life that will support your goals, your hopes, and your dreams. And yes, it's that simple.